if you're after a California, if you're after a transporter, and it's something that's out there, now is a great time to get one of these vehicles. We talk about California, for example. Now we've got this sales event which is on currently as we speak at the moment. I would not be surprised if shortly after that sales event, possibly they might end up closing production for that, maybe. Depends on how many vehicles they get in that order bank. Hi everybody, today I'm going to talk you through what's happening with T6.1 orders, and we're going to have a little bit of a discussion later on where we think the market's going as far as things like Californias are concerned, and with our combis and our panel vans, and where we think that's going to lead to over the next 6 to 12 months as we go into 2024. So as you may have heard, you may have seen on the in forums and things like that, on YouTube as well, that's in here. Currently T6.1, so what's behind me here, so combi, panel van, transporter, shuttle, all those variations, with the exception of California, is closed for ordering. You can no longer order a specific vehicle from Volkswagen, from the factory, from ourselves at dealers, for what you actually want. Now this is a relatively new thing that's come out, and the reason simply for it is because there are so many orders people have already ordered, and obviously this vehicle is due to be replaced next year, and because of that the order bank is pretty much full with all that capacity that's in there. And this isn't a UK specific thing, this is a worldwide thing for them, from the actual factory that's producing the vehicle. So essentially is that those vehicles are already in there. So if you've already got an order in, that's fine, that's no problems, that's still in the order bank that's there, but this is to stop new vehicles coming through and completing to what's done. So the order bank is full from a worldwide perspective. So where do we go from here? So what's actually happened is Volkswagen themselves have actually ordered us lots of stock that's in there to get to that final number they think that they're actually going to be able to get to. So there are vehicles coming through. So it's not a case of you can't get a 6.1. We've already got vehicles which they've allocated to us already, so individual dealers will have that X number of vehicles that are coming through for the next couple of months in production, and then that will continue filtering through. But what it will probably turn out to be is that there'll be specific models that we can build, that can come through, that's in there. And you might find as these restrictions, which we've had a lot of restrictions of parts that are not available then become available again, will probably suit what's actually being built and coming through that's in there. But if you're after a specific vehicle, obviously that is something we can no longer actually order and bring it in from there. So what's coming next? So obviously the transporter itself is going to be redone in 2024. That's going to be the new version of the T7. Now I know we told the multivan, we call that T7 as well, but the new version I believe is still going to be called T7 or T7 Heavy, I think is the word that's been used around there, which will be obviously more the commercial basis of that as well. And that is a collaboration with Ford, no point beating around it, I think it's out there, you know that already as well. But it will be still a Volkswagen product, as it will be with all these things that are collaborated as well. Now as I said, California itself is excluded from this. You can still order what you want on California. There are certain models which they've deleted off the system, so you can't do 4Motion. For example, that's gone across the range. But other than that, you can still order a California. Lead time's pretty quick. Check out a video we've done of reference the sales event. We'll put a link somewhere above. If you just click on that one, have a look at that. We'll talk a bit more in detail about the California that's there. But the California obviously is something that is still available to order in its current format. But leading on from there, what's happening in the future is probably the important thing that I want to do the video on more than anything else. And this is to do with things like residual values of vehicles, what's coming next, what's going to happen with the vehicles. Because I get lots and lots of you asking about, should I wait for the new model and do this and do that, for example, that's there. Because as I said, we've got these new models coming, but they're 2024, and there's a lot of time between then and now. And where's the pricing wise and things like that going to happen from here and with California? Because I get lots of you asking me these exact questions time and time again. Should I wait for the next model in 2024? What's it going to be? Where's this going to be, etc., and things like that. At this point now, it's also definitely worth pointing out to you, I haven't got direct line into Volkswagen and get lots of information, because that's not how these things work. Us as dealers, we generally find out, possibly sometimes a little bit before everybody else, but only a little bit before everybody else. So a lot of what we're talking about is things that is speculation. It's not cast in concrete. There are things that we do know, and that is that this vehicle will stop production in 2024, 100%. We know that. That's been, they've communicated that from in there. But what's coming next, That's the thing that we don't know as dealers. And then probably some of it, probably Volkswagen are still working on that themselves as well, of how these things are going to change and evolve coming through into next year and the year after that. We've talked about things like ID Buzz California, for example, and we talked about that around 25, I think was the time scale that was being bounded around. Well, what's that going to look like? Is it going to look like a beach or something else? Or again, you've got kitchen cupboards in it and things like that. And these are things that we don't know at the moment. But the thing that we do know at the moment is that these vehicles, they've stopped taking orders on them. So we suspect, and then we are seeing it now, prices are the highest they've ever been for transporter of all variations. And we can't see that changing over the short to medium term at the very least. And probably even longer than that, I suspect, because if there's a new model coming out, it will be more expensive. They generally always are anyway, and that will help keep those residual values higher. And with California itself, California is always unique. It's always got a great, fantastic residual value to the point where some people have been buying them a couple of years ago and they're getting their money back for what they paid for it now, or even some more on top as well, which is very unheard of. But that's where we are at the moment as well. I can also see the California, as we speak, on this 6.1 variation that's coming here now, looking at what's coming next. And I have seen the new Transporter. I have actually seen it in the flesh. Obviously pre-production model that's in there because we're still a long time off yet. You know, is that going to look like what we've got at the moment? I'm not sure. I'm not sure if all the things are going to go in it that we've already got in it, and it's going to need quite a bit of work, I think, to get it to there. So, you know, it was a quick question somebody asked me the other day, is this going to be the last of the true California, and as far as, you know, the kitchen cupboards and the size of it and things like that? Nobody knows. We don't know. One thing I can probably say for certain, though, is that the residual values on the California, the Transporters, as they currently are at the moment, I'm sure will stay very, very high. And demand for them, I can imagine, going even stronger than it already is now. So if you are thinking about changing your vehicle to something like this now, the California, or whether it be a Transporter, and you've been waiting to see whether pricing's dropping, etc., things like that, I think it's going to be more about what's left that you can actually order and get hold of. And those vehicles that you do then, those particularly unique ones that you see on there, things like Sportline, as I said, California across the range, depending on what it is, things like the combis behind me here that's in there as well. You know, we're expecting to see them prices stay really high, which is great. Obviously, it costs a lot of money to get one. I appreciate that, but you are investing in something for the future and then driving it forward. I'll make a bit of a statement now, and only time will tell this, but I've got a funny feeling things like the 6.1 on the California is going to be like everything else within the range, and it's going to have that certain heritage feel, I think, as it gets older and older. Will the next variation be as same and as practical as this? I'm sure it will be. I'm sure technology will move forward. It always does. It's going to take a lot to beat that. I think to get better than the 6.1, I think there's going to have to be a lot of new things that's in there to get to that standard, and I'm sure Volkswagen probably will succeed at that and do it. But you know, this where we are now is a really good place for that size of vehicle. And you've got to remember there's lots of other things coming on board which are pushing this variation around as well. You know, we're talking about electric vehicles, for example, and as you may or may not know with electric vehicles, the more weight you put in, which the batteries themselves weigh a lot, so that's not helping, and the kitchens, everything else that you put in as well, has a huge effect on the range. So again, there's things like that to consider as well. We're looking at that near to future. So to wrap today's video up, primarily what I'm really trying to get at is, if you want one, now's probably the time to get it. We talk about California, for example, now we've got this sales event which is on currently as we speak at the moment. I would not be surprised if shortly after that sales event, possibly, they might end up closing production for that maybe. Depends on how many vehicles they get in that order bank. We've seen it happen on 6.1. There's too many vehicles in the order bank. They know that's what they can fulfill before they get to it. When will that happen with California? I don't think we're going to be far off there. I'll hold my hands up, it might not be, we might still be selling them in December, I don't know. But Volkswagen have learned very well, as with all these things are, keep it quiet and put it in place and stop it from day one. And the simple reason they do that, somebody asked me that the other day, is if they don't and they give you a week's notice, that order bank, which they thought they couldn't do anyway, is even bigger because everybody scrambles and scrambles and scrambles and puts hundreds and thousands of orders in to try and get them the last vehicles that's in there. And it creates the situation even worse than it was in the first place. So I fully understand why it is. So apologies to those people who feel a bit frustrated that sometimes these things just happen on a knife edge, and you wake up in the morning and you suddenly can't do what you wanted to do. But there are reasons for it, and I think most people, when you look at it from the bigger picture, probably understand. If you're after a California, if you're after a transporter, and it's something that's out there, now is a great time to get one of these vehicles.